Hey everybody, Jim McKinnis here, and we are with Kim, Loretta, Leroy, and Jeremy. And we're on a Zoom call, but if you could just picture this, we're around a table and we want to do something a little bit different. I know that I see lots of videos on YouTube, I see lots of things on Facebook that there's an agent or there's a couple agents talking to a camera, kind of sharing about the home buying process, sharing about good tips and everything. And I think that's great. It's great to educate, and we believe in that. But we do something here at the office. We do a mastermind on Mondays, and we all get together and kind of just talk about different situations of our market, different tools, and just ways to get better. And a lot of times after the mastermind, agents will be sitting around and we just begin talking and we just kind of talk amongst one another. And there's so much value in those conversations that I was like, well, what if we had like a call and we have like a little roundtable and we just start talking about the home buying process and what are good things and what are bad things and how are buyers feeling, and just letting you hear, because I think that sometimes you have to hear from a third party perspective, like you're watching a conversation, and that's what we want to do. So what we want to do is just get together like we always do and actually talk about the process and talk about just some really key tips that I think really are valuable. But it's really not always presented on Facebook or social media, but it's those golden nuggets that can really help buyers that are just in conversations of professionals that are talking about what's happening. So that's the intent today. And so we're just going to chat a little bit. Is that okay? We're going to chat, Loretta, Jeremy. We're just going to talk. No one else is watching. We're recording. This is going to be like there's a big brother, like a little camera that is like in this room. I know we're all not in a room. We're all in individual rooms somewhere else. But we're just chatting and we're just going to talk. And what I wanted to talk a little bit about is, let's say we just finished up with the mastermind and we're talking about home buying, the home buying process and our experiences with our buyers. What are some challenges? What are some things that some success stories that we're seeing? We're like, man, like, this is really important. What are we seeing on the ground? What are buyers actually saying? Like in this market with the uncertainty, what are buyers saying? So a lot of times, like what we'll do is, like, I'll ask, or someone says, hey, what are you seeing out there? Like, what are you seeing out there? And you just kind of like share that, because boots on the ground working with people are going to be more in tune with what's happening in the lives of buyers and what's happening in the thoughts of buyers and just what's happening. So I'm going to toss that out. I'm going to ask Kim to kind of get it started. I'm like, what's happening out there? Like, what's happening with buyers? What do you think? What do you think that we need to focus on as buyers? If you're a buyer or you have a family member that's a buyer, what are you telling your buyers right now in all of this uncertainty with, the inventory, but interest rates and, is interest rates going to go down? All of these little variables. Like, so what are you saying, Kim?
So what I'm telling my clients right now, my buyers, the number one thing that I've transitioned in this market with my buyers is, especially my young buyers, first time buying, maybe starting out in life for the first time, they have a lot of people in their lives speaking into the buying process and not just trusting their realtor.
Mm.
So I have a couple right now, they're getting married in the fall and they've lost out on about 6 homes. And that's because grandma and grandpa and mom and dad are telling all of them how to negotiate for these homes. So because of that, that makes that process even more difficult for them and they're not winning. And it's because they're looking at me more as I'm just opening the door for them, but not looking at me as the expert. And so I've realized the conversation that's being had now is, for the buyer meeting, who is speaking into your life? who are you, which is great. I'm glad that we have people with wisdom and nuggets that can be given. But maybe if mom and dad are going to be a factor, then they need to sit down with us so they know exactly what's also happening in the market, not just that buyer. So I'm actually inviting those parents to a buyer meeting so they can hear firsthand what the expectation of what the market is doing right now, because long gone are the days where we see a house on the market for 150 and we offer them 130.
Yeah.
So we're having conversations about like realistic value. I go prepared with, here's what the house is listed for, and here's the expectation of what it could go for versus what it could appraise for, and what's the expectation if it doesn't appraise.
Mm,
Because, otherwise it's going to be a difficult journey. To an example of a buyer who last week FHA outbid four other buyers, and it wasn't necessarily just value. There was strength in other things that we did, as far as we gave more in earnest money that they were already going to bring to closing that made them a stronger buyer. So maybe instead of just giving that standard $1,000 to $2,000, we can give more in earnest money. There's other things that we can do to make the offer stronger and not feel like we're giving away all of our money from our bank account by paying more for the house at the same time. I just
that's
think
so
that there's
good.
value there. So
That's
even though
good.
so interest rates are a little bit high, but interest rates are going to drop again, and they can always refinance the house later when the rates drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, anybody else have any thoughts about that? Because I think that, I mean, the like if you bought a house, like let's say somebody bought 10 houses but the last house they bought is 5 years ago, that's going to be a different environment, right? So so the basic strategy of negotiations are pretty solid. I mean, they're the same, but as far as the conditions on the ground they vary based on the current market. I mean, it changes within a year. I mean, it could change 1 month to the next month. I mean, there's different variables there, but man, I think that's so good as far as like bringing in. Have any of you guys ever brought in someone other than the buyers for like a meeting, like including them?
I'll
I've done that here and there. Oh, go ahead, Leroy.
I was just gonna speak to that. Is I find that a lot with, like Kim was mentioning, with especially with first time and younger buyers, there's a lot of people involved, which, as she mentioned, can definitely be a positive and great. There's a lot of buy-in into the process from other family members, and I think we all think that that's important and needed and an absolute blessing. And I think one of the ways that we can help facilitate that process is really explaining to the buyers and those concerned with the process the actual current market conditions and the actual nuances of our current market as opposed to several years ago and what might have been. I find that a lot in my situation. I find that a lot most common with maybe a younger lady who's buying and then dad's really wanting to join in the process. And so I'm really trying to bring as much value and information, insight and knowledge to show the interested parties that having me as a guide, as an expert, as a coach in this process is beneficial to the buyer, whoever that might be. Because this is our profession, this is what we do, every day, all day, and that does give us a little bit more insight than average on what the process is like. Of course, right now we're dealing with, we could all agree that this is the most educated, as far as factually educated buyer pool. But even with that being said, there's so many nuances and there's so much that goes on kind of in the backgrounds with the actual process that it is incumbent upon us to really engage them with kind of that information that doesn't make it onto social media, that information that doesn't make it onto the Instagram reel, and that information, that doesn't pop up, number one on the Google feed.
Mm. I think
Well,
that's really good.
Yeah, and I think so too, circling back to what Kim was saying, is that I think some are still under the thought that with the market changing, interest rates going up, that now they can go in under asking price because there's not as many buyers in the market, right? And housing prices are going to drop. And that's not necessarily the case. They have to understand what area that they're buying into. There still may be several buyers vying for that property. And so what might be good for one property may not be a good strategy for another. So having that price point or that conversation up front, I think is really important in the buyer meeting, just letting them know that in some cases we're still seeing multiple offers over asking, waiving inspections. There's just still some of the madness that can be happening based on the condition and the location and the price point of the home. And to that point, trusting your agent to direct them through that, navigate through those conversations, and trust in what the comparisons are. We all pull comparisons before we write an offer. We want to check, are they out of line with this price point? No, it's actually really good. And actually they were very smart. They went a little bit under so that it's going to pull in more buyers, the pool is going to be bigger. So anyway, I think we just offer such an amazing amount of information and knowledge that we are there for our clients and to walk them through that step and making good decisions. But I don't disagree. Mom and dad and grandma and grandpa can definitely be a part of it. And I welcome that.
Well, and
But
as a
as a
new
fact,
buyer,
I say that too.
like a lot of them, depending on their budget, that's kind of where setting the expectation and setting the stage, because say for instance, their budget is 150. So like what Loretta's saying, that's a very reachable amount for many, many people. So when you're talking about a property that's listed for 150,000 versus a $300,000 home, that's going to dictate and somewhat weigh in on, are we going to be finding ourselves often in a multiple offer situation, given what that property is listed for, if it's right on. The other thing I would say too is just in reference to the mom or dad or the family member or even a close friend. I've had many situations where they try to kind of steer them off the path as to, this is the right way, this is the best way. And to what we're talking about, like we're living and breathing this every single day. So it's, in some respects, I kind of see it where from a professional standpoint and stature, we have to set the stage and kind of calibrate them and say, okay, this is how this often will work. Doesn't mean that we don't have to adapt and change our strategy from time to time, but help them understand that with all that information that Leroy was talking about, I mean, they could sit there and look online all day, every day, and they're going to find so much information that they're going to have information paralysis. They're going to be stuck. And that's where we step in the gap and basically fill that and help them understand, okay, what's important, what's not important. Let's not freak out about this. And here's how we address this. So just helping them understand that we're the shepherd. We're going to help see it through to the very end, and understanding the value and resource that we provide to make that happen.
Mm. Yeah, we're the guide. It's I heard I was listening to somebody recently, and one of the things that the value, we can find the house. We could be a home hunter, like we're a home hunter, like we're trying to help them hunt, right? So we're a guide and they're the hunters, right? So we're guiding them when you go hunting. I mean, you have a guide there. But the guide is more than just finding. It's also it's the process. And I think that's where, like, let's say you can find the house, that's awesome. I mean, that's the first step. You got to be able to find it. But then like what is the value is you got to navigate getting it. Like you got to navigate actually the negotiations. You got to navigate the offer process. You got to navigate all of those other things. And I think sometimes, and I know that even in I was reading about the survey, National Association of Realtors did a survey, and most buyers out there are like, the number one thing is they help me find my house, which is awesome. That is huge, because you can't buy a house unless you find one. I mean, and that's really, and we have a lot of tools for that. I mean, really cool like tools. But man, but the process, I mean, well, you can find it, but you got to be able to, like, when you're hunting, I mean, you got to actually be able to, you find it, but now you got to have the process to actually, like, are you going to actually be able to get it? And I think that's a big thing. So talk a little bit about that, about we navigate not only the home search, but that process of facilitation. I think that sometimes that's overlooked because the value that I see that agents are providing every day is like, man, it's like they are navigating some terrain in this market and getting these homes for these buyers, and like in very difficult situations, and like they're able to actually do that. So like talk a little bit about that, because really the buyer doesn't sometimes understand that. It's like this is agent talk right now. I mean, this is like, man, you got it. Like, man, awesome, you got it. And like, and the buyer may have just seen that you're 1 for 1, and like, and you got that one house, but like they don't like, I have, a hunter can appreciate another hunter. Like, that was good. That was a good shot, man. That was a good shot. So talk a little bit about that. I mean, I know you know what I'm talking about, because you're like, man, like if you're an FHA buyer that was out there and you got, man, the FHA buyer, you won in multiple offers. What'd you do? Like, it's like, I don't know. I'm just
tell you that was a win.
Yeah.
I bought
Well,
ice
I
cream
mean,
for myself after that. I went to Dairy Queen and I got some ice cream to celebrate that one.
there you go. Frozen ice cream cake day. There you go. Yeah, I think a lot of it, like when we talk with buyers, and if we know we're in a competing offer situation, I often will explain it. I'll flip the script and I'll say a seller will sit down with their agent and have the conversation looking at how many ways can this offer fail? How can it fall apart? And our goal is to minimize or essentially erase that, whether it's what Kim's saying, a larger earnest money amount, or asking them what's most important to their seller. Do they need time to get out of the house after closing? Or can we minimize our concerns as to inspections? So yeah, we want to do our due diligence. We want to understand what we're buying. But if we can eliminate concerns of HVAC and roof and things that are larger of nature, or even tell the seller, hey, we're not going to nickel and dime you. So we're having inspections, but we're gonna leave it alone as long as it's under X dollars total. So how do we put ourselves in a position where they see you in a better light than the next guy up? And I think that's some of it too, where we have to sometimes have that conversation with them that you may not want to do this, but these are things that some out there may be doing. So that dictates, okay, let's think through this. What are you comfortable with? What are you not? And some of that just making sure that we're giving our very best effort, because when it's all said and done, you can play the game of woulda, shoulda, and just thinking that through, or you go, well, I'm going to tip my hat. That guy did more than I did, and it did everything I was willing to do. We move on. The next opportunity is out there.
And that's a great point. And I actually tell my clients, I talk to my buyers as if they were my sellers, and my sellers as if they're my buyers. I put the different hat on because I want them to understand, if I'm bringing in the client to buy their property or I'm listing the house, I'm letting them know this is what they're thinking. This is their thought process. You have to be thinking what they're thinking. And so I go there, I do a deep dive. Now when I meet with my clients for the first time and I go through a buyer meeting, I touch on that, and it can be very overwhelming. It's a lot of information we cover in that hour usually that we have in front of them, along with the introductions and the get to knows. But it's important that I do touch on a few things of scenarios of what we might come up against. And I will tell you, if they write an offer 1 or 2 times, we're not going to play those scenarios. But after they've missed out on a house, they understand. I see what you're saying now. I understand. And now they're vested. Now they're like, okay, I'm ready to get in there and play, because now I understand I'm competing and I'm missing out on the homes that I really want. So then they're more open to thinking outside the box and getting creative with what we can do to write the best offer. And at the end of the day, it's still going to be based on what they can do and what they're comfortable with. But my job is to walk with them, along with them in that manner, and help. Okay, how can we strategically get to the next step that's going to still be within the realm of what you're comfortable with and can do? And that's where I bring my value to my clients. To that point, yeah, they have no idea everything we're doing and how many times we're doing it throughout the day with all of our other clients. But more than not, I get that as a compliment paid to me. They had no idea. And what I do, and I tell them, I said, it's my job to turn waves into ripples for you. You have no idea what I'm doing behind the scene.
I like that.
Yeah. And in getting it done. And so
That's
yeah.
that's a quote right there, Loretta.
I
That's a
know
quote.
that's gonna be my thing.
Yeah.
Waves into
Help you
ripples.
turn waves into ripples.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, and sometimes I have some.
answer to that on Apple Watch.
My watch. It picked my watch. It picked my watch started talking back at me. What quote by Loretta Henry?
Oh my gosh, I need to get that was it trademarked or something? So
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
yeah. So no, I could go on about that, but I think there's just a lot of conversations we have with our clients that you wouldn't know that you're going to have. I have a lot of quotes, and to get grace, you give grace. So you have to really think about when you think you're going to play hardball with the person that's bringing the offer to you, or once you're under contract, you're really going to push back on something unnecessary that we need to just navigate through. Yeah. So there's a lot of conversations that we have with our clients and to get them from point A to point Z. But our job is to get them there as smoothly as possible.
Yeah, that's good. Leroy, I seen that you were.
Yeah, I was just gonna piggyback on something Loretta mentioned, and that is, still basing our decisions, recommendations, and guidance on what the buyers are able and or are willing to do. And I know that's something that's always at the forefront of our minds as well, is like, okay, we know what we can do in this situation, within this context, within the framework of this pre-approval, but with the buyers being, with them being our fiduciary responsibility, and with understanding of what they're comfortable with, how do we work within that context? And I know all of us on here are always talking with our clients about some of those items that they're not even thinking about as we look into the near future, right? What are the statistics say about how long you're going to be in this home, and what does statistics say about the property taxes? You're aiming for this monthly mortgage amount, and are we taking into consideration taxes going up? Are we taking into consideration home insurance going up? It's going to start right here, but is it going to get desk reviewed 3 months after you purchase the house, and now all of a sudden the insurer is saying, hey, your roof is over 10 years old, we're not going to insure your home, or we are, but now your premium is being raised by X amount of dollars. And so I know, I know that that's something that we're always thinking about. And I just wanted to piggyback on what Loretta said and provide because we know what Loretta was saying, but understanding that there will be others that are hearing this, providing those people with context about we're always working within the framework of what you feel comfortable doing, and what's right for you in your financial situation, what's right for you and your familial situation. So I just wanted to add that.
I think the other thing too is it's not just about showcasing our power and being a good negotiator for them and showing our strength, which is important. It's very important to show them our resume and show them our quality. But I think it's also so important that we use verbiage that reflects to this is what the market is saying. Here's what the market is doing. So I have been using a lot of well, currently, this is what the market says. And here's what we're seeing in the market. So it doesn't feel like we're just necessarily picking on or showcasing are you sure you really want to come in 10,000 less? Because the market is showing in this neighborhood, here's where the numbers are. And we really for me, I really feel it's important to say things as well hey, while I appreciate the seller has his home on the market, my concern isn't right now the seller. My concern is making sure that you feel heard and that we know what the market's doing and that you still like me in 2 years if you go to sell this house again. And so we're
Yeah.
looking at what current market value is, what is a realistic fair value to offer. And, you know, we don't know what the market's going to be like in 2 or 3 years, but we want to know that if, you know, they're going to sell again because maybe they'll plan a family and outgrow the home, or they get relocated, that we can still help them through that process. And we're not having conversations of, well, now you need to bring $10,000 to closing. So I think showcasing the strength and what the market is also saying is a key to helping our buyers today.
Well, and some of that too, like, is understanding what are the concerns. So I often, and this is not my quotes, but some of the best things in life are on the other side of fear. And if we can step through that and understand what we're tackling or what we're trying to take care of, and I think that's a large part of like how we need to connect them with quality resources within the industry. So to Leroy's point of, okay, what might my payment do in the future? How can it be affected? Whether it be loan, taxes, homeowners insurance, all those things. But to the point of like when we're trying to get that house, and how do we be creative and how do we utilize our information to our power? Some of that is just making sure that they have a direct line of communication with their lender. So, for example, of okay, well, $10,000 is going to equate to $70 to $80 per month in your payment. Now, again, every situation is different, so it's not always that, but just to give kind of a framework around it, so that way they understand, okay, if this is within my comfortable range, do I want to make those shifts, those final kind of fine tune changes to my offer that's going to maybe make me stand out if it's priced correctly. So those are the things that if we can give that solid advice, giving that resource and making sure that understand how these things work and why it's going to impact them in certain ways, that fear can start to wash away or at least minimize, so that way they can understand and know that we're there for their best interests. But at the same time, we're there to guide them in what's most successful. And you want to buy a house. So how do we do that? So we have to show care and empathy, but we also, in many ways, have to be tactical about it if we're going to be successful, especially in this market.
That's really good. I know a couple of weeks ago, we did a mastermind on the component of emotion with the process, a buyer buying, and all the emotions that, so like right now, like a lot of times there's a logic part of it. There's like, this is what we have to do. We have to get a pre-approval. We have to go through, but then there's the emotion of it, of the home buying process that can really wear on people and wear on their, you know, kind of a little bit of anxiety and fear, and just kind of, you know, kind of piggybacking on what you said, Jeremy, about fear. But what combats that is like you having a knowledge and a plan and a guide that can help you with your fear, because the fear is typically things you don't know, like you don't know. So then you have a little bit of fear because it's a complicated process. You don't know what the next step is. You don't know how much that's going to cost you. You don't know the impact that's going to make on your family. You don't know all these things. And I think that's where we come in, because we then have to say, okay, that's fearful because of an unknown, but you have a guide that can help you through this process that will then help decrease that fear, because now there'll be knowledge and understanding as you're going through the process. And I think that's the biggest variable that I see with buyers that are frustrated, or they feel like they're just kind of like, man, I don't know. There's this fear or frustration, but usually it goes to this emotion, and the emotion is driven by there's this unknown thing. There's this unknown factor, unknown. There's no houses out there. It's unknown. There is a house out there for you. There's all of these different variables. So just talk a little bit about that, because what Jeremy, you said, like, I think this is such a big part. So, I mean, I know there's people that are going to be watching this that they're like, I'm not going to buy a house because I'm an FHA buyer. Like, and FHA buyers get beat out on every house. I'm a VA buyer. I'm a veteran, and I'm not going to buy a house because I just heard stories at VA, they're not going to accept VA buyers. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I mean, I think that there has to be a little bit. We just accepted an offer on a house that was FHA, and they were asking for seller concessions, like, and they were the best offer, and like, and they got the house, and like, So talk a little bit about that, about navigating the fear, and maybe giving somebody out there like that would be listening to this conversation a little bit of hope of like, there is a pathway for you to buy a house. There is a pathway. You just need a right guide. You need somebody to help you and guide you and walk you through, not just someone that's going to find the house, but going to help you after you find the house. I mean, like after you actually find the house, what does that look like? Because that's really the key factor. Whoever wants to hop in.
Well, I think with every challenge, there's an opportunity on the other side of that. So, I mean, McKinnis Realty, I think we've done a phenomenal job for a long time in doing buyer meetings. Granted, with the landscape change as far as real estate industry as a whole, that basically is a paramount that has to happen regardless, no matter where you're at. But giving light to the path, and that's what I talk with clients all the time. Communication, if you know ahead of time what's coming and what you need to prepare for, and maybe to Jim's point, like what that might cost me, when I'm saying me, what it might cost the buyer, it makes the process and experience a lot smoother. So even if they have the concerns of, okay, well, I'm trying to get approved for a loan and I don't know what loan type I'm going to be qualified for, whether it's conventional FHA or I'm a military veteran and I want to use my veteran benefits and use a VA loan, how do I be successful in doing that? I think the main thing is we have to understand and share with our clients of, okay, whether it's your loan financing, how do these things dictate? How are they different to a seller perspective? And also from the standpoint of, okay, well, home inspections, that's going to cost you X dollars, but here's the reasons why you want to do that. We're investing $600 total to check these things on the home. So that way, when you buy and you close and you move in, that you don't find yourself on the other side of that fence owing $10,000 to fix things that weren't found. So it's just making sure that we have a long-term game and helping our clients, because once we close, I mean, I've heard many people say that you're just getting started, because obviously that relationship, you want to carry that on and you want to serve them a lot longer, whether it's they're down the road, to Kim's point of you want them to think of you fondly when it's time to sell, or you're just a trusted resource that they reach out to when they have questions.
Oh man, that's huge. How many times after a deal, like, and this is what's not seen. So like if you're just a buyer out there, if I'm a buyer and I don't know anything, I'm just like, well, my agent, they find me a house and I get a house. But after the deal, we just tax appeals, improvements to the property, giving you some advice and help, totally disconnected from you. I mean, it's you're already a homeowner. But I know there's so many of us that go out, and I'm honored when they call me, but like I see that there's agents within the office that are going out and like, hey, where are you going? They're going to look at a past client's house, or they're thinking about updating a bathroom, or there's their property tax assessment is high and they're helping them with tax appeals. All of these things, so much more than just finding you a house. It's way beyond that. And it's you're pregnant and you're going to be having you got some more space, so you're looking at reconfiguring some things at the house. You're getting some opinions from an agent. I'm telling you what, if everyone could see really what all an agent would be willing to do and is there to do, it's much more than just finding the house.
I had a client reach out to me this past weekend who I've done tax appeals for her. I sold them their house probably about 4 years ago, maybe 5, 2018. Man, time is flying. And she wanted to know my opinion. Her air conditioning went out in the heat, and wanted to know about if they finance a heating and cooling system versus like, because their plan is to sell in a few years, and does that add value? And so our relationship goes beyond opening the door and writing the contract. We will partner with them from the time that we meet, that first time buyers meeting, and we will handhold them. And that relationship is not just a buyer and agent relationship. It's a partnership. It's a friendship. It feels like extended family. And so whatever they need, they know that we've built something that trusts there, that we are genuinely concerned about their well-being in the future in their home. And I was honored that they called and asked about their heating and cooling system and what would be a good path for them. You know, and when she told me the rate that she was given, I was like, oh, let's pause and let's call a few other people.
Yeah.
You know, because we see that regularly. Let's not finance a small RV for your heating and cooling. Let's talk about other options here. So,
Yeah,
and I think
absolutely.
it's important too that we let our buyers know, hey, this is not the snowstorm that's coming with the last loaf of bread. There are more homes. We're a highly prevalent relocation community with the teaching hospitals and all of the major universities that we have here. So more homes are always coming on the market.
That is
Yeah.
true. And the one thing I always say is, you know, if they get beat out or they're not finding their home, I just simply say your home's not available yet. It's all about the timing because when it's your home to have, there's nothing that's going to get in your way. You can't screw it up. I can't screw it up. The seller can't screw it up. There's nothing that can get in the way of this becoming your home. It just works that way.
I think that's really
The right
good.
house, the right time always happens.
Yeah.
Yes.
That
I feel
perspective.
it, you feel it, it always happens. Yeah.
Mm. Leroy, what was you gonna say? Yeah, I seen your.
No, I was just in agreement again. It especially for first time buyers, but not just first time buyers, but oftentimes they can find themselves in kind of an emotional trap, and it just feels like defeat, right? And that could be after one missed offer, or it could be after 3 missed offers, or it could be just after looking at homes for 2 weeks straight, right? Everyone's threshold is a little bit different, but oftentimes just because of the nature of real estate, and as Kim mentioned, the nature of real estate, especially in our market, right? We like to speak to our market because we are professionals in our market. There's a lot of turnover, and that's definitely a positive. A lot of going and coming and moving. So with that a kind of onslaught and roller coaster, our buyers can find themselves in a position in which they are just emotionally down. And like Loretta, you mentioned, hey, it just wasn't the right house. And we are going to find you a house that you absolutely love, that is the right home for you and your current need. And you're going to know that this is the one. And when that happens, you're going to be glad. We deal with this all the time. They're
Right.
glad that they didn't get that first offer accepted, or they're glad that they didn't get that second offer accepted, or they're glad that they chose not to even submit an offer for the past 3 weeks or even a month sometimes, and they finally decided to go all in on this exact home. So again, everyone's threshold is different. I think the thing to know is that it might hit sometime, but that's when we come in as your coach, when we come in as your guide, when we come in with our market expertise and our understanding. Jim, you talked about emotional intelligence, and we come alongside you and say, hey, we're gonna get through this together. And it still baffles me on a personal level. This is my second, I mean, various jobs, but this, as far as career is concerned, I would say this is my second full career, and never ever did I really understand how tied in with our clients we get, right? How much we want them to succeed, how much we want them to buy the right home for them, and how much we actually journey with them through the whole process, right? Even with our understanding and being professionals and kind of having a 1,000 foot view of what's going on, even with all that, it is still interesting me on a human level how we kind of journey with them. And so to any buyer that is going to be listening to this, and if you're in the middle of the process or you haven't even started the process because it's just so daunting to even think about it, I want to let you know that we are on your side, right? We at a professional level, at a human level, at an emotional level, we want to come alongside you and help you make the right decision for you.
That's really good. Yeah, I think that it's you have to care, right? So I mean, you want to work with people that care not just about finding a house, right? I mean, they want to care about you as a person, as a family, beyond the house. Like, how are they beyond? Like, when we work, like, I think that, and I think that sometimes the perception can be from the outside looking in, like not around this table right now. Like on the outside, they could be like, well, real estate agent, you just want to sell a house. It's just a commission. But that's not at all the conversations that we have. The conversations that when no one's around are about the deep care you have for a family, and for, like, you're trying to make hard decisions and you're trying to guide them through difficult adversity. And there's so much care in there that, to me, if I'm in buyer, I want to work with someone that first and foremost has to care, like has to really care. And then secondly, in close, I want them to be competent. I want them to be competent, but I want them to care. Like, you can have competence and not care, and and you can have a lot of care and no competence. Like, you want both of those things working together. So you want to know the market, know the process, know what to do, but you also want to have this care, this level that, like, look, there's some things, advice I may give you that may not be beneficial on getting to the closing table, but is beneficial for you. And I'm going to give you advice, not necessarily like based on this is just advice that's going to be good for you and your family. And I think that I see this every day. And I know through all of you that are around this table, virtual table, I see it. And I just think that if everyone else can just see that, like, man, I mean, it's just there's so much value like that is shared, and so many caring agents. And I know you guys are just a small representation of a lot of agents that are just really caring, and not even within just our office. We're not promoting just our office. There's just some amazing agents that sometimes we don't see it communicated publicly, but I know that other offices, great agents that care. And I think that I just want to be a proponent for anyone that's out there and say, look, work with someone that knows what they're doing, but work with someone that cares. And if you get both of those things working together, man, it's gonna be a good experience. And just so you know, sometimes it's not the agent that there's adversity that happens, and that's not the agent. Like, the agent's helping you through adversity. So I think that sometimes, like, if it's like, it's all timing, right? You guys, you ever work with something like something like not good happens, and you're like, all right, you're walking them through the process, and you're just like, man, it happened while they were working with me, like now they may not want to work with me, you're like, man, what is this? But but we don't control the rain or the sunshine, or we just are guiding them through the process. And I think that if you find the right person that cares and has competence, you got to stick with that person. And I think because that person's sticking with you, and I think that's a big thing as well. I don't know if you guys have any experience about that. I know, because sometimes you can come in with, you're the hero, but it's just because it's not raining. And then, it's not raining. You're like, well, this weather's great. This process is great. You're just like, well, yeah, you get a lot of people take credit for the weather.
I had one of those today at a closing just before this. I'm like, man, you made this process just so easy, and I didn't stress at all. And I mean, listed about 4 amazing things, and I was like, I just took it, like, hey, I just do my job, right? I just want to be professional. So I accepted the compliment, but I also have to admit that there was definitely work involved, and definitely things that we had to do during the process, but it was overall a generally very good transaction. So yeah, that helps that it was generally sunny, warm weather this whole transaction.
And it's funny you say that, because I actually had one of those this morning too, because we did get under contract very quickly. And so they shared with me that when they bought their house last time, was drawn out 4 months. It was just a awful experience. But this wasn't the case this time. They got their offer accepted like within, I don't know, 2 hours. And, at first I was just like, well, that's the kind of work I do. I mean, I really do work hard for you on your behalf. And then I did a check and I'm like, no, I can't take credit for this. It was meant to be. I mean, there's just some things you can't explain, it's a sunny day. You're not going to get a whole rain in your house, but there's just some things that you can't explain away and take credit for. And at the end of the day, we do a good job, and we do line up and I think put things into action to make sure that we're successful. But
Making waves into ripples.
my waves into ripples, yes.
Well, and I think there's power in knowing what to do and when to do it.
Mhm.
And that's why they come to somebody that has competence and care. And even in some of the earliest conversations I'll have with new clients, new buyers, I'll talk to them and share certain personal details about myself or my family. And I'll explain buying a house is not a sterile process. So that way, when I'm asking them questions along the way about them, getting to know them, that just takes that relationship to a deeper level. So if there are, I guess, waves or even just a little bit of turbulence along the way, there's more developed trust there. And knowing that we have everybody at that table that is needing to be there, from trusted quality industry partners, whether it's a lender, title company, another colleague, if they're needing to step in for a showing agent. I mean, the list can go on and on. But I think at the end of the day, we do our jobs well, and we try to minimize those mistakes if they ever do happen, or even just if it's something out of our control. But I think the best thing is we make it seem easy to a client, but also I think it's fair to let the client peek behind the curtain from time to time and realize that it's not all blue skies and sunny days all the time. Like there's these fires that we're putting out, and we're doing that because it's going to make your experience better. And because I'll say to him, I'm like, my job is to do the heavy lifting. My job is to take stress off your shoulders. If I'm doing that, I'm doing my job well. And I want to be there to serve clients and make sure that they understand that they're not having to worry all day long. Are we going to get to the goal? Are we going to get this done? We absolutely will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think to your point, when you're prepared, so if you sit down as a buyer and you sit down and you go over the process, then it could be, good weather, there's not many issues, but you're prepared for if or when there would be issues. So you're going through the process, but you have an umbrella with you. You have a guide with you. So in the event of the road getting a little rocky, or there's a little adversity in that road, that path of buying a home, you have a guide there that can guide you through, and you may not even feel it. But there's things that may be happening in the process because of the preparation. And then there's less fear because you know what the next step is. You know what's going to happen because you have a good guide that's guiding you every step of the way. And I think that is very key for the process. There's always some level of adversity that will always come. And you got to expect that, but you got to be prepared for that. I think you got to be prepared both tactically, like you got to know what's going to happen. You got to be prepared emotionally too, like what's going to happen. Like, hey, this is the next step. Look, this is what's going to happen during the inspections. This is the process of the inspections. This is what we do next. And then this is what we do next. And I think once we break it down in a small bite-sized portions, step by step, and you know what's next, I think that helps a lot. So I really feel like it's not that we go and just say, hey, we just hope everything is good and we just kind of wing it. It's really not that at all. We're prepared for the rain. We're prepared for what could happen. And you need to work with somebody that's going to be not only good with everything's going good, but it's going to be prepared and help you be prepared for if it's not all together. You have, a bad report, you have a failed septic, you have, something like that happens within a framework of a deal. At that point, that's when it's going to be very key for you to have a good guide that's going to help you through. I know, Kim, you had something. I know we're coming up on time here in a second, so I just wanted to. I seen Kim. She was. I seen you raise your eyebrow.
I was just
And
agreeing.
you,
Like
and you
I just
said, so
taking
so I
it
said,
in. It was
go ahead.
good. Like, woo, that was tasty. Like, and taking it all in. But I do like this has nothing to do with the eyebrow raise. But Leroy said, it was interesting because when Leroy, I'm gonna echo what he talked about, like, defeat isn't always like a bad thing. Like, and I remember as a teenager, when I went for a short season, went to a church in Niles. They have this plaque on the wall that says, when it looks like defeat, it's actually victory. And so that made me think of that when Leroy said that, because if we lose out, your guy, we've talked about this in this meeting, like we just maybe that defeat was actually saving them $150,000 nightmare, a $200,000 nightmare. The right house, the right time will happen. So defeat isn't always bad. Defeat can be victory. Defeat actually isn't always defeat. So I just thought I would echo what Leroy said. I thought that was good. So, but the eyebrow was just me. I'm writing notes. I'm like,
got it. Got it.
Said that. Oh, good. Oh, Leroy is on fire. Oh yeah, Jeremy, that was good. So that was just me taking notes.
How many times have you worked with somebody that was like, man, I'm so glad we didn't get that first one?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, I almost wish that, like, after posting this and we share this with everyone, if somebody that has that experience would comment and say, hey, like, yeah, like I got beat out on a couple. I'm glad that I got the third one because this is the one that was meant to be for my family. And like, it's hard when you're kind of cleaning the wounds up, wiping the wound, like, and in that
first one's hard. I don't like delivering that message.
Yes, yes, it's so hard.
I cry with them. I'm just like, I'm so sorry. I know you wanted it so bad. I wanted it for you.
But the right one will be the right one.
It will be.
And you have to trust that. And you have to get back up. Don't give up. Continue going forward. And I just want to encourage some buyers out there that may feel a little bit defeated, maybe frustrated. Out there, or maybe you've just been sidelined. Maybe you're just not even in the market. I would encourage you to start the process and start getting into the process. And I think the best thing, the way to do that, I think that you need to meet an agent. You got to sit down with them and let them kind of go over the process so you can be prepared and work with someone that you feel comfortable with, that you feel is going to best help you and your family. And I think it's very simple, I think. But any last words? What I want to just throw this out, kind of a lightning, like, if you were going to give like one thing to say, hey, this is one thing, that one tip that I think that, like, I want to give to a buyer, like if your family member or your child was buying and they're coming to you and say, Dad, Mom, what's the one thing, what would you tell me to do to best position me for success if I want to buy a house? What would that be?
Pre-approval letter, start your pre-approval process. Even if you think you're a year out, talk to the lender immediately, because what you think you may be ready now, and then you find out 7 months down the road, you're actually not, and you have some things you need to figure out, that's going to be super frustrating. So talk to the lender sooner than later.
Yes. I would recommend also, on top of that, maybe make out a list of what do you want to accomplish between now and buying your home, because you're going to want to put off any large purchases, anything that's going to compromise your ability to buy the home. So you really need to be thinking outside of even just wanting to buy a home, but what does that look like? What's going to maybe cause a roadblock or an obstacle? So really, I'm all about goals, being goal oriented along with organization. And I just think really, if you're looking to buy a home, you need to sit down and really kind of recap what is your goal and what is the next few things you want to accomplish. And then where are you at in your lineup of buying a home? And then get with your lender and then find out how far off are you, or are you ready now? So
I would say don't be afraid to ask questions. Getting the information and answers to those questions is going to help give you direction, whether it's getting that pre-approval or what you need to work on financially, or this is the wish list of my home and here's the things I'm willing to flex on. It's just, you're starting to do that self-discovery as a buyer and what the process is going to require of you. So asking those questions is important. And then paramount is sitting down with the people you need to sit down with. And I would say the two mainstays to what Kim was saying, obviously pre-approval, and I know Loretta said that too, but also sitting and talking with your realtor. Time is your friend. So if you don't know for certain when you're going to buy, you just want to do it soon. Don't wait until it's a month before your lease is out. Don't wait until it's a month before you have to do something. Let's start the conversation now, because it's going to make it for a better experience. And if there's things that you need to achieve in the interim, you have time to do it. So let time work in your favor.
And I would just add to that, make sure as part of your process that you actually like the realtor you're working with. I think that's extremely important, because there can be the dynamics of the home buying process can be so varied that there needs to be a trusting relationship with your real estate professional. And if you don't feel like you have that, the process will be that much more egregious. And whoever that might be, that's a family friend, someone that your parents use, someone that, a sibling used, make sure that you also see that real estate professional in the same light that, that relative saw them. Because not everyone, just like any other profession, all across the board, everyone has some nuances to their personality, their character, the way they carry themselves, the way they interact or talk or whatever. And you want to make sure that you are comfortable with your real estate professional.
That's good. Yeah, it's about fit, right? It's a good fit, and I think that's what you want to do. That's why I think to Jeremy's point, starting early, because then you can not be rushed, because it's not about a house, it's about a person and a process that you're trying to learn. And I think that's a different start when you're like, well, I just want to go buy this house, and then you're rushing through it. Again, that's probably not the best path. It would be better for you to be a little bit more measured and be more intentional about who your team is. Establish your team, your agent, your lender, establish that team, know how that team works, be comfortable with them, and then move forward with that team. And I think that is a much more practical way, and I think more beneficial way for a buyer. At least from my experience, has been those that have a little bit of time to invest into the process now and to the people now will have a better result in the end. And I think that's very, very big. But well, I appreciate you guys. I know you guys are all really busy with clients. I know Jeremy's in a car, so Jeremy's probably like going to meet a client right now. Like, but
next appointment up. Yep.
Well, I appreciate you guys taking time. Your input and your knowledge and your experience is so valuable, and I know that there's people out there that are going to be able to kind of listen to our conversation. Hopefully, it helps somebody out there. If anyone has any questions, you can reach out individually if you want to connect with Kim, Leroy, Loretta, Jeremy, or anybody. Just generally, just feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help in any way that we can, and we just want you to know that that we care, and we want you to know that, and we want to try to equip you with the knowledge that you need to be successful. So feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be honored to be able to help you in any way that we can. Cool. All right, we'll see you guys.
Bye.
All right, we'll see you.
Yeah, have a great week.
Yep, you too.
All right, bye guys.